Torchwood, Everything Changes, the first episode of Series 1, is written by Russell T Davies and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, Indira Varma and Gareth David Lloyd. So I've done Doctor Who Series 1 and 2, and I want to include the spin-off series in order of modern era, which would be fun to do. Plus, Torchwood Series 1 sets in after the events of Doomsday, where Cybermen and Daleks battled in Canary Wharf. Because Torchwood is a 15 age rating, and so will the retrospective videos of the series, which is why I put the age rating on the intro, unlike my Doctor Who ones, which I imagine there'll be children watching my Doctor Who retrospectives.
It is an offence to supply a video classified 15 to anyone below that age. Video certificates are there to give you the chance to make the right choice. Thanks for listening.
Anyway, let's get this shit done. So yeah, before Russell T Davies brought Doctor Who back on screen in 2005, he came up with an idea of a science fiction crime drama style taking the inspiration of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. The show was originally going to be called Excalibur, but the idea was dropped until 2005 and decided to call the show Torchwood, which is anagram of Doctor Who. In Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the first episode of Series 2, Captain John Hart jokes about the name Torchwood should be called Excalibur. John Barrowman said he doesn't do nude scenes in Series 1 as they're saving it for the next series, and he doesn't have a problem taking his clothes off as long as they pay him the right money, he said. So this is the first Doctor Who spin-off series, except K9 and Company, as it's only got one episode. This is also a first series to include swearing and sex scenes and showing more blood and more violence. So this episode was originally going to be called Flotsam and Jetsam, but they put it in the script instead, where Jack describes that idea falling through the rift into Cardiff. This episode is released on 22nd of October 2006, back to back with the second episode, Day 1, in a 100-minute premiere special. This episode begins on a rainy night in Cardiff. There was a murder investigation going on. When the mysterious Torchwood team arrived, Suzie uses a metal gauntlet to bring that guy back to life for a minute to ask him about the murder. While Gwen Cooper, the police officer who spies on them, who later works for Torchwood, and yeah, she's played by Eve Miles, who previously played Gwyneth in The Unquiet Dead. And both names look kind of similar. I think the casts are fantastic in the role. So Gwen researches on who Captain Jack was. According to the computer, he's gone missing 1941, which is the event of the empty child and the Doctor dances during the gas mask zombies. Jack was never seen until recently. At the sealed area in the hospital where Gwen decides to follow Torchwood there, we see a creature called a Weevil, and those are brutal monsters. They can rip anyone's head off in seconds. But yeah, when the porter came in and thought it was just a mask from Hellraiser, the Weevil bits him in the throat, with the blood squirting out. That was so brutal. Thankfully, Jack and the Torchwood team got Gwen out of there, but sadly the porter didn't make it. So we have two recurring characters. We have Andy Davidson, the police, played by Tom Price, Gwen's former co-worker, and we have Rhys Williams, Gwen's boyfriend, played by Kai Owen. Like I say, the casts are great. First, Rhys was an arsehole boyfriend, as Gwen and Rhys argue a lot. It was great acting, but then he became a better bloke after when he finds out the truth about Torchwood in Series 2. I think Kai Owen's a nice guy in real life. Plus, I've met John Barrowman and Gareth David Lloyd at Newcastle Comic Con. It was absolutely surreal, and they're very nice people. So Gwen finds a way to get Torchwood is by going to the pizza shop and deliver a pizza to Torchwood Hub. Because, well, Owen ordered it in the name of Torchwood, and of course Jack wasn't happy about it.
And before we go any further, who the hell orders pizza under the name of Torchwood?
Yeah, that'd be me.
Sorry.
So Jack decides to tell Gwen who the people are and what is Torchwood, which basically is introducing to the audience.
Who are you?
Torchwood.
What's Torchwood?
This is Torchwood. All around you.
Suzie Costello is second in command, and well, she's a traitor, and she's played by Indira Varma, who later played the Duchess in Doctor Who Rogue. Owen Harper is the Doctor, and he's played by Bern Gorman. He's a funny character, I loved his lines, as he's my favourite Torchwood character other than Captain Jack. Toshiko Sato is a computer genius. Naoko Mori reprised the role as Tosh, who first appeared in Doctor Who Aliens of London. I really like Tosh. She's definitely a great character. Ianto Jones, a receptionist who cleans their shit up. And yeah, he looks good in a suit.
Careful, that's harassment, sir.
Oh, sorry. We also have Pterodactyl hovering around in the base, which is cool. Apparently she was called Myfanwy, named by Ianto, and she's actually named after a beautiful Welsh song. It's a nice introduction to the crew and the base. So Jack shows Gwen the invisible lift to get out of the hub, to roll down Plas in Cardiff, covered in perception filter, which is why no one can see it. Captain Jack guessed it was because of the TARDIS that landed there in the episode Boomtown. That's how the perception properties to a spatial temporal rift. Jack also explains that it's Torchwood 3 they're in, as Torchwood 1 it was destroyed during the Cybermen and Daleks battle. Torchwood 2 is in Glasgow and Torchwood 4 is missing. So yeah, Jack decided to give amnesia pills so she can forget everything about Torchwood and Captain Jack. But then she recalled these memories back towards the end of this episode after we find out it was Suzie who stabbed 3 victims to improve the gauntlet. And when she shot Captain Jack, we'd be thinking, oh god, is that him dead? But he has died before, so don't know what's gonna happen. But yes, he came back to life and healed his flesh wound, like Wolverine from the X-Men, and poor Suzie decided to shoot herself in the head. But I think it was because she knew that she would be brought back to life a few episodes later. Captain Jack realised he couldn't die, but he had no idea how. And obviously it was because of Rose who brought him back from the dead after he got exterminated by the Daleks. And he's been looking for the Doctor. It's nice that Jack gave Gwen a job for Torchwood because we're going to need her.
What do you think? You want to join up?
Yeah.
I also love the fact that Captain Jack stood on the rooftop like Batman. I don't know if it was supposed to be amusing, but I like it. This scene where Owen is sitting at the bar chatting up to a woman, who I believe she's called Linda, and used that spray from Torchwood Base to seduce her. And yeah, Linda's boyfriend decided to pick a fight with Owen, but then he sprayed and got that guy to kiss him, and when he's calling for a taxi, I'm like, oh god, Owen, what's he gonna do? The fact that Linda and her boyfriend wants to kiss Owen. Oh man, could you imagine if this happened to you? So yeah, I think this episode is a great start for Torchwood. A nice introduction. I love the characters, the actors are amazing. I would love to see more of a Weevil story. So, what do you guys think of the first episode of Torchwood? Do let me know in the comments below. Torchwood Day 1, the second episode of Series 1, is written by Chris Chibnall and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. Originally it was going to be called New Girl because the story focused on Gwen's first day, and she makes one mistake. The scene where Gwen accidentally opens the meteor was meant to extend the metaphor of breaking the photocopier on your first day at work. Plus it added a mix between Gwen's domestic life and science fiction. Chris Chibnall came up with the idea of the sex gas. He had no idea where it came from. Russell T Davies said it was inevitable to have a sex monster. Dear God. Sorry, he did say this episode is not solely about having a laugh with the sex gas, as it also has something to say about the world. The first episode begins with Gwen and Reese at the bowling alley when they saw meteorites. Gwen has to go to work, which we obviously know how Reese feels about this. So when the Torchwood team investigates a meteorite, apparently that scene was filmed just outside of Cardiff, as they felt it was a perfect location for a crash site. And quite right too. And thanks to Gwen, like I said, accidentally opened a meteorite, the pink gas goes onto a woman called Karis, played by Sarah Lloyd Gregory. And I think she did really well. So when Karis decided to go back inside a nightclub after she popped out to make a phone call and throw an abuse to her ex, I'm like, blimey, the sex gas is one way of taking your mind off things like this. Because a bouncer wouldn't let Karis back in, she decided to kiss him, and then all of a sudden he just lets her back in. I mean, this kind of power reminds me of Poison Ivy, one of their Batman villains. So she went to a random bloke and, well, have sex with him. As a result, that turned him into a dust and saved Karis' life for the time being. How did that discovered? Well, it was because a bouncer looked at the CCTV footage to masturbate, and I'm sure it is creepy, and shouldn't he be sacked and possibly arrested for doing that? And also, why is there a CCTV camera in the ladies' toilet? I don't think that's right, guys. When Torchwood team looked at that footage, I love the line when they're like, he came and went. That crackled me up every time.
Oh my god, he just
Came and went.
When I first saw that episode, I thought that idea was pretty weird. An alien's intention is to have sex to save their life. Funny it's a Doctor Who universe. When the postman arrives and Karis, well, is about to have sex with him, luckily Torchwood cock-blocked to save his life. Jack wasn't really grateful when Owen uses an inflatable cell to stop Karis from escaping. It's because you shouldn't take alien technology out of the base without his permission. We find out the reason why the sex gas came to Earth to possess Karis, to shag men to death, is because, unlike the other planets, the Earth tastes better and the planet is a hit. I must be drunk or something, but it's also scary when you think about it.
okay. First contact with an alien, not quite what I expected.
In the scene where Gwen and Karis were snogging in the cell, both actresses, Eve Miles and Sarah Gregory, talked about how they would do it, and they both agreed to imagine that Gregory is Johnny Depp and Miles is Brad Pitt, which I think it's a good idea to film that scene. I love the scene where Owen was watching that on the computer when Tosh was like, we should get her out of there, and Jack was like, yeah. Yeah.
We should really get her out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, come on.
The scene where Torchwood team were having a Chinese takeaway and discussing the mysteries behind Captain Jack made me crave for Chinese food. It was Jane Tranter's idea, the executive producer, as she said the Torchwood team should take a breather. And Owen in this scene seemed to be the only one who knows that Captain Jack is gay. When Karis escaped and Owen was somehow naked and covered his area, it's a brilliant gag when Gwen asks Owen if he still feels a bit of a cock. When Karis throws the hand in a jar and Jack picked up a hand, we obviously know who the hand was. It was the Doctor's, when it got sliced off during the sword fight with the cigarettes on Christmas episode. I found out that one of the Russell T Davies' favourite scene was where Karis is walking down the street where they show porn advertisement and couple kissing, because it explores how sexualised the Western world is. We also learn that Karis is a receptionist at Conway Clinic, and she's also a fan of Orlando Bloom and Heath Ledger. The scene where Karis punched a receptionist, and you'd be thinking, when she gets unpossessed, she could possibly lose her job and arrested for assault. When Owen shows the Torchwood team a rat in a cage, they filmed a real rat and then replaced it with a fur-covered condom filled with chicken bits and red dye to simulate guts, then exploded with a squib. So in the end, Karis gets unpossessed and the gas is really weak and turns into a pink dust. Thank God they didn't kill her off and gave her a happy ending instead. Man, I'm here to talk about a Doctor Who universe episode, and all I seem to be doing is talk about porn. So, what's your thoughts of day one? Let me know in the comments below. Torchwood Ghost Machine, the third episode of Series 1, is written by Helen Raynor and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. So yeah, this episode begins with Torchwood team chasing after Bernie Harris, a guy in the hood, because he's got a device called Quantum Transducer or Ghost Machine, and it allows humans a form of mental time travel. So after Bernie Harris drops it and Gwen picks it up and pressed a button, she sees a young boy in 1941 during a London Blitz.
No one knows who I am here. I'm lost.
Come back.
And his name is Tom Flanagan. We find out his mum and his sister died during the war, and because of the paper error, Tom was accidentally left behind the train station on his own overnight. Luckily he was eventually picked up, but still scary. Then in present time, Gwen meets Tom, and he apparently has an adult daughter called Ellery, who greeted Owen and Gwen and helped Owen to make tea. The old Tom Flanagan is played by John Normington, who previously played Morgus in The Caves of Androzani, and Trevor Sigma in the Happiness Patrol in classic Doctor Who series. So the Torchwood decide to look for Bernie, who's a thief, and even his mum wouldn't let him home until he gives her £50 he owes her. When Bernie stole Quantum Transducer and pressed it, he sees a woman putting her dead baby in the waterway. Holy shit! When Bernie used it again, he witnessed the murder of Lizzie Lewis and tried to blackmail Ed Morgan, her killer, and he refused to give him anything. But when Bernie sees his future, he sees himself dead on the road outside his house, still young, and covered in blood, which is pretty grim. So when he told Gwen about it and she tells Jack about it, it was only one of many possible futures. Bernie went outside after this to confront Morgan, who was threatening to kill him. Scared, Bernie told him he would keep it a secret, and the Torchwood team disarms Morgan and saving Bernie's life. I love the scene where Jack teaches Gwen how to shoot. It is well done how they did it. Ed Morgan is the villain in this episode, and man, what a bastard. The scene where young Ed follows Lizzie under the bridge where he goes, "Lizzie," was so scary. When Owen sees the night where Ed killed Lizzie, he confronted him and decided to provoke him because Owen wanted to avenge the death of Lizzie. Gwen decided to take the knife from Owen, but then Ed ran into Gwen and stabbed himself with a knife. When Gwen sees it, she thought she killed Owen, but turns out she accidentally killed Ed. Plus Ed wanted it anyway. Yeah, this episode is really dark and scary. There's great acting here. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this episode. Torchwood, Cyberwoman, the fourth episode of Series 1, is written by Chris Chibnall and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. So yeah, this is the first episode to centre on Ianto Jones. As the first 3 episodes, he's just a background character. John Barrowman described him as Alfred Pennyworth in Batman. It was originally going to be the 6th and 7th episode, but ended up 4th instead because some of the other scripts weren't finished. It also became harder episodes for Chris Chibnall to write. While he was working out the title, was it going to be The Trouble with Lisa or The Long Night of Ianto? But then in the end, it's obviously called Cyberwoman because it says it all. Russell T Davies realised that there was a story begging to be told after Doctor Who episodes Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. In the beginning of the episode, after the Torchwood team were playing basketball, they leave Ianto alone in the hub. A Japanese doctor arrived and went down to the basement, and we discover a hidden Cyberwoman. And what happened is the Doctor banished Cybermen into the Void, which is a space between universes, to be imprisoned. We find out that Cyberwoman is Lisa Hallett, Ianto's girlfriend, played by Caroline Chikezi, and she's done a fantastic job. And after when she's like, "I'm alive," the way she smiles in a suit has got to be terrifying. That is absolutely brilliant there. Lisa worked at Torchwood 1 in Canary Wharf, and she caught up in the battle and her upgrade wasn't there yet. So Ianto wanted Dr. Tanizaki to reverse what happened to Lisa, and I think this episode is well written. Togo Igawa is great as Dr. Tanizaki, a doctor who studies cybernetic. Igawa later played Secretary General of the United Nations in the Doctor Who episode, The Pyramids at the End of the World. Thanks to the UFO Rogue, the Torchwood team came back, and after when Tanizaki puts Lisa back in the basement, Cyberman took her over and tried to upgrade him to thank him for helping her, but it horribly failed and he died. If Doctor Who was a 15, especially Cybermen's stories, I think it'll be just as bad as the Saw movies. That scene caused the power to play up, so Ianto quickly lied so he can go down to the basement himself and find Tanizaki's body screwed up with pieces of Cyberman, which is really gross. It's such an emotional scene, the fact Ianto has lost the girl he loves. The acting and writing is well done. Gareth David Lloyd has transformed here because, like I said, when I met him at Comic-Con, he was a nice guy who stood up to shake my hand. But as Ianto in this episode, he's such a bastard. Okay, I can understand about his emotions and how hard that hit him when his girlfriend is gone, but he should be aware that you can't reverse the process, and when he punched Captain Jack, threatened him and pointed a gun, I was like, holy shit, Ianto. I don't know how you still got the job after what he's been doing. If you're watching this, Gareth, that is a well done. You deserve a medal.
One day, I'll have the chance to save you, and I'll watch you suffer and die.
It was the only thing that would stop her!
So when Captain Jack realised something was wrong, he sent Owen and Gwen to find Ianto, but when they spotted a cyber conversion unit and informed Jack, he quickly heads down there and Tosh has to seal the base because they found out that there is a Cyberman in the base. And they can't let one outside, otherwise people would be screwed.
If there's a Cyberman in this building, we need a last line of defense. Just make sure it never gets to the outside world.
Cybermen are known to remove human emotions. When they find any place to rebuild the army, they spread across the world very quickly, and Cybermen are very deadly. I enjoyed the scene where Torchwood team distracting Lisa and getting themselves out of the hub. That is well done. Plus Captain Jack gets deleted twice by Lisa, but unsurprisingly he came back to life. He just can't die.
You will all be deleted.
I'm sorry for what they did to you, but this ends here.
I can't believe he squirted barbecue sauce so pterodactyl they kept can maul Lisa to death. And when they got Ianto out, like I said, he punched Jack and called him a monster. And when he run back to the base about to save Lisa, Jack gets Ianto to execute her, which must be horrible for Ianto.
You execute her or I'll execute you both!
I won't do it.
And can't think of anything worse when your loved one is turned into a Cyberman and, well, you have to kill them. It's really fucked up. When Annie, the pizza girl who delivered Torchwood 3, Lisa got her and transplanted her brain into Annie's body. It would be interesting if we see Cybermen doing it more in future episodes.
Yanto? Yanto, it's me.
Plus this episode, you weren't even sure if you'd hate Ianto or feel sorry for him, or both. When you find out that Lisa's brain is corrupted, the Torchwood team shot her.
We can be upgraded. Together.
And at the end, everyone forgives Ianto. When Jack thought he could die after all, just for a second he mentions he feels so alive. I really enjoyed that episode. It's one of my favourite Torchwood episodes, plus Lisa's jump scare has done really well.
We still haven't...
Jack?
Cyberwoman is the biggest nod to Doctor Who. There was a little to no mention of the series despite being a spin-off, which was made deliberate to send out confusing signals to the audience about what the series is. Chibnall wanted to include a base description of what a Cyberman is for any viewer who had not seen Doctor Who. So, what are your thoughts of Cyberwoman? Torchwood, Small Worlds, the 5th episode of Series 1, is written by Peter J. Hammond and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. So this episode begins with an old lady, Estelle, walking down the woods at night taking pictures. When the flash goes off, the creatures notice and became human-sized. They're also called fairies, and according to Captain Jack, fairies were from the dawn of time. And I loved how they referenced Mara in this episode.
Sometimes I think they're part Mara.
Mara?
Kind of malignant wraiths. It's where the word nightmare came from.
To those of you who don't know what a Mara is, it's like an alien snake that appeared in Peter Davidson's era, the Fifth Doctor, back in the 1980s. They were a hive mind that dwelt in the dark places of the inside and take over a host.
Are you alright?
Yes.
Close these gaps!
Jack was thinking that they could be part Mara as they suffocate people in their sleep. I love it when they made a Doctor Who reference, including the classic series. So Jack woke up from a nightmare in a train with dead soldiers and they have rose petals in their mouths. Gross.
All 15 men were dead.
Ianto tells Jack about the strange weather patterns in the area. We discovered that Estelle Cole has known Captain Jack since Astroya Ballroom during World War II. When she later in 21st Century meets Captain Jack again, she thought he was the son of Jack that she had known, and yet Jack had loved her when she's young and old. She thought those fairies were friendly, but Jack tried to warn her they were not, and as a result they sadly killed her. And Jack was pretty devastated. I think Eve Pierce did really well. We have a young girl called Jasmine, and she was the chosen one of the fairies. When she was walking, this guy, Mark Goodson, who claimed it was Jasmine's mum's favour, but he turned out to be a paedophilia, and he tried to kidnap her, but luckily the fairies got him, and that made Mark go berserk, coughing up rose petals, got arrested for insane behaviour, and died in a cell with the rose petals down his throat. Which is not exactly how I want to die. Jasmine is loved by her mum, obviously, but her stepdad, bloody hell, what a bastard. Can't believe mum thought he's nice and gentle, but he's actually an abuser. He finds Jasmine a strange child because she had no friends and playing in the woods. And during the 5th anniversary of his relationship with her mum, he slapped Jasmine across the face when she found out that he built the fence to stop her from going into the woods. And yeah, as a result, he was killed by the fairies. And she managed to get revenge on 2 girls who bullied her in school. The very sad scene was where the Torchwood team arrived and Jack lets the fairies take Jasmine to their lost lands. And yeah, her mum, understandably, was really devastated and tries to attack Jack for what he did. But then Jack tried to comfort her while she was going through an emotional breakdown. The fact that she's lost her boyfriend and her only child on the same day. Even Jack was really pissed off with himself, but there was nothing he could have done. So yeah, this is an interesting and emotional episode. What are your thoughts of their small worlds? Do let me know in the comments down below. Torchwood, Countryside, the 6th episode of Series 1, is written by Chris Chibnall and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. So yeah, this is the first episode of Torchwood not set in Torchwood HQ, as the team decide to camp at a countryside as they were concerned about the space-time rift spreading. Apparently it's Eve Miles and Gareth David Lloyd's favourite episode. So it begins with a woman, Ellie Johnson, losing her signal on the phone while she was driving. When she sees something that looks like a body, it turns out to be a football in a hoodie, and yeah, it was a trap. So while she tries to lock herself in the car, she gets attacked by something that we later find out. And I think you can tell that episode is going to get really scary. So when Torchwood, as I said, travelled to Countryside because of the concern of the space-time rift spreading, they also heard the reports of missing people. I enjoyed the scene where the team was sitting around discussing the last person they kissed. Gwen's last person she kissed was obviously Reese, Tosh was Owen, Ianto was Lisa, and Owen, well, it's Gwen. when Owen decided to say it out loud and Gwen was really pissed off. It was so funny when Jack was like, does non-human life form count? And Owen was like, you're a sick man, Jack, that's disgusting. I'm like, moving on please. Yeah, it was really funny. I really do not want to see the list of people that Jack has been smooching. In the scene where Owen and Gwen found a corpse that was stripped, first time I watched it, I was like, what? It was so gross, and I felt like skipping that episode. But I carried on watching because it was getting better and better. Apparently the corpse was a decoy, not a warning. So after Torchwood Range Rover got taken, the Torchwood team decided to split up and investigate the village. That scene was so scary when they searched around and someone trying to break in and Yando and Tosh gets abducted, and not to mention corpses lying around.
Please tell me what's going on here.
Let's take a look in here.
The set actually reminds me of Resident Evil 4 game, the look of the old and dirty village houses. We find out that this boy, Kieran, who accidentally shot Gwen with a shotgun, was trapped in there too and later gets captured. In the scene where we see the piles of shoes and where Tosh opens the fridge and sees pieces of humans, we learn that they eat people.
They need to eat. With food.
And when they get taken to the lair by Helen Sherman, it reveals that they're cannibals.
Tell us what these creatures are. Do they look like us?
How else are we gonna look?
I would hate it if I were trapped in a place like this. Owen Teale, who played Evan Sherman, the leader of Brainblade D Cannibals, has done really well. He previously played Maldak in Vengeance of Eros, Colin Baker's era. And I think Maxine Evans is great as Helen Sherman, the wife of Evan. Maxine later played Lowry, the landlady from a Doctor Who episode, 73 Yards, when Tosh managed to escape and Evan went after her and decided to strangle her to death. Luckily Owen and Gwen saved her, but unfortunately the police they were with is one of them. And yeah, he's Evan's nephew. I enjoyed listening to the banter where Evan is like, are you gonna arrest me? And Hugh said it would be a laugh. I loved Owen's line when he calls the villagers sick fuckers. Before Evan slices Ianto's head off, luckily Jack came in with the tractor and wounded all the cannibals by shooting them, as he learned what happened when he questioned one of them that he shot and threatened to torture him. Also, that's the first scene where you hear Captain Jack's theme. I was like, yes! The music by Murray Gold is fantastic. I mean, what can I say that has never been said already? So Gwen decides to question Evan why he would do this, and at that moment when he says, let me whisper, I thought he was going to bite Gwen's ear off or something, but thankfully he didn't. And he reveals that killing and eating people makes him happy.
Because it made me happy.
Come on.
So in the end, all the cannibals are arrested, Kieran will be home safe, and Gwen mentions that she can't tell anyone about her experience, but she can with Owen, and yeah, she cheated on Reese for Owen as they slept together. I really love this episode. It's so scary and well written. It's also one of my favourite Torchwood episodes, right up there with Cyberwoman. The acting and sets are well done. What do you guys think of Countryside? Do you like that episode? Let me know in the comments below. Torchwood, Greeks Bearing Gifts, the 7th episode of Series 1, is written by Toby Whitehouse and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori and Gareth David Lloyd. So it begins in Cardiff, 1812. A prostitute called Mary ran into the woods and followed by a soldier she insulted. When he slapped her, I was like, Jesus! And even worse, when Mary was possessed by Arcatenian, she took a soldier's heart out. I love the design and the effects on Arcatenian. It looks so cool and beautiful. We later see one in the first episode of Sarah Jane Adventures. I'd I'd love to see more of Arctinian. So in the 21st century, Mary, the Arctinian, meets Tosh, get in relationship with her, and she gave her an alien pendant, a device that you can hear people's thoughts. So apparently Mary was using Tosh to get the transporter back. When Tosh wore it in the hub, listening to everyone's minds, including Ianto when he's still upset about Lisa, she realised she was spying on her teammates.
Could have been someone died in an operation. This has got sugar in it.
No worries. Just asking.
And yeah, she did regretted a sexual relationship with Mary. Plus, this is where we find out that Tosh is actually in love with Owen, I think. Apart from when she mentioned kissing Owen in the Countryside. So Tosh follows a man to his house, and he was about to kill his wife and son as a revenge for break up and engage to the other bloke. But luckily Tosh came and battered his head with a golf club. This scene was like, holy shit. And yes, that abuser is played by Ravan G. Ganatra, who later played Hakim Khan, Yaz's dad in Jodie Whittaker's era. After when Tosh takes Mary to the hub, Mary explains who she is and decides to point a knife at Tosh so she can get Jack to give her the transporter back. So Jack did, and turns out he tricked her by transporting her to the centre of the sun, which is dark. Jack offered Tosh if she wanted to keep that alien pendant, but she smashed it, so I take it that's a no. And at least Tosh did a right sensible thing. So yeah, the story of this episode is interesting. It's a nice idea of someone able to read people's minds. I'm curious to know what you think of this episode. Let me know in the comments below. Torchwood, They Keep Killing Suzie, the 8th episode of Series 1, is written by Paul Tomerlin and Dan McCulloch, and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. So this episode is set in 3 months after the events of Everything Changes, and Indira Varma, who came back as Suzie Costello, a deceased member of Torchwood team. Originally this episode was planned to be an overcommission for use in the case of emergency, but Russell T Davies was impressed with the script and they produced it. I loved at the beginning scene where the Torchwood team were investigating. Kathy, the policewoman, was wondering, does Jack always dress like that while he investigates? And Jack was like, well, would you rather have me naked? And Kathy was like, God help me, that is pretty funny. I like it. Yasmin Bannerman plays DS Kathy Swanson, a police officer who has a love and hate relationship with Torchwood, particularly with Captain Jack. I really loved her performance. The fact that she gets irritated by Jack's interference. Bannerman previously played Jabe in Doctor Who, The End of the World. So when they went inside a house, they saw a corpse and a word Torchwood on the wall, written in blood, which is scary stuff. And it was Sarah Briscoe, who was murdered by a Pilgrim member, Max Tressilan, who was friends with Suzie. So Torchwood team decide to pick up a gauntlet and resurrect Mark Briscoe, Sarah's husband, who's also murdered by Max. And he didn't know, so Torchwood investigates Suzie's items in the Pilgrim, so Gwen resurrected Suzie, and she was in shock when she's back to life.
Wait a minute, didn't that kill you?
Never mind that. We need names and details.
Who's using the glove? I'm sorry. No, Gwen bloody Cooper.
But before she dies again, Torchwood team sadly learned nothing, but there was something wrong. It turns out Suzie is alive. So while she's on the wheelchair, realising it's been 3 months since she was gone, and she wanted to see her dad, but Jack wouldn't let her. So Jack, Gwen and Suzie looks at the pictures knowing that a girl named Lucy Mackenzie is a surviving member of Pilgrim. Basically, she works at a club called the Wolf Bar. So the team went to the club and captured Max just before he tries to kill Lucy. So Max gets locked up in a cell in Torchwood base. He wouldn't say a word, but in rage when he says Torchwood, I was like, whoa, easy there, mate. So yeah, we find out that Suzie's dad was dying of cancer, and that pissed Gwen off, because Jack never asked Suzie about her dad, and all he did was put her in charge of the glove and second in command before Gwen works there. We find out that glove using on Mark resurrected for a bit, just like the other victims, and then died again. But as for Gwen doing it on Suzie, as she's the owner of the glove, it was permanent connection so that Suzie lives and Gwen dies. The only way to solve the problem is kill Suzie, and if she dies, that'll save Gwen's life. So while they're trying to find Suzie and Gwen as they're going on a trip, the team was stuck in the hub, and I find it funny where Jack is phoning Detective Swanson to call for help, and she laughed that Jack and his teammates were locked up in their own base, and Jack was like, "And it's not funny." Brilliant.
You're locked inside your own base.
And it's not funny.
I enjoyed the moments where Suzie and Gwen were in the car, and Gwen tells Suzie that she's not a corpse.
Don't say that.
What? Corpse? Because you're not.
But what am I then?
I don't know, you're just not though.
Plus Gwen was wondering what it's like being dead, and Suzie claimed it's just all darkness. But who knows? So everyone figured the number code to get the hub back online and getting themselves out and get after Gwen and Suzie. The scene where Suzie murdered her dad in the hospital is really sad. I'm not gonna lie, I really don't like the stories of someone murdering their own parents. It's really depressing and barbaric. If it wasn't for your parents, you would never have existed. So yeah, Gwen finds blood on her head, like she got shot in the head or something, because they were swapping each other's health by the looks of it. So when they arrived at the dock, Gwen dies and Suzie is strong and so alive. So Jack kept shooting at Suzie to break the connection, but it wasn't working.
How much more of this do you want?
When I first saw that scene, that was the time where I haven't seen Torchwood episodes, and that was the clip I saw. I was like, holy shit, Jack, what are you doing? Would the Doctor have something to say about it if he was there? But of course, when I watched that episode, it all makes sense. He was saving Gwen's life. The only way to break the connection was to destroy the gauntlet, and as a result, Suzie dies and Gwen is back to life. It's still sad that Suzie dies, but at the same time, she was insane. Jack explains that they're gonna run out of space putting corpses in the freezer.
One day we're gonna run out of space.
So yeah, it explores more of the Suzie story and the gauntlet. What are your thoughts of this episode? Write it down in the comments below. Torchwood, Random Shoes, the 9th episode of Series 1, is written by Chiquetta May and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bernd Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. So yeah, this episode is filmed at the same time as another episode called Captain Jack Harkness, which is why it focuses on Gwen, as the other Torchwood members are barely in this episode. Originally this episode was going to be called Invisible Eugene, but then it's changed into Random Shoes, but it was still listed as Invisible Eugene in the radio times. This episode begun with this kid, Eugene Jones, has been hit by a car, while as a ghost he sees his corpse lying in the road. It's actually interesting having a ghost as a main character. The fact Eugene can put his arms through people when he's actually not there. So Eugene follows Gwen to places, and the first time I watched this episode I actually thought Gwen was the only person who can see Eugene, as it kinda looks like it.
I love you. I love you.
We learn that Eugene is great at mathematics when he was a kid, and because at some point his mind was blank and in inter-school maths he lost the competition and his schoolmates ditched him, which is horrible. Plus I think Paul Checker has done a great job as Eugene. We also learned that Eugene is into UFOs, and I think he was trying to get a job at Torchwood but he was dismissed. But instead he works at Passmore Telesales. Apparently his teacher gave him an object that looks like an eye or a blue marble ball called Dogen. So I think that's what made him invisible and leaving his real body on the road. It's like something off Doctor Strange movie after the scene where the Ancient One fell and before, well, she dies.
You have to return to your body now. You don't have time.
Time is relative. Your body hasn't even hit the floor yet.
So Gwen visits to Eugene's devastated mother and little brother, which I think there's great acting in there. When Gwen sees a photo of random people's shoes on phone, which actually gave her some clues, which is kind of random. Brilliant gag, I think. Bernd Gorman, the actor who played Owen, thought that episode was weird when he got asked what was the weirdest episode he did. Apparently Eugene was selling Dogen the Sixth Eye on eBay when he boosted, and it sold for £50,005.50 in total. In Eugene's funeral, his father was there, which is nice as he argued with Eugene's mum and left the family and never returned. So in the end, when the car was about to hit Gwen, Eugene managed to push Gwen out of the way and all of a sudden everyone can see him, which is a nice scene.
Thank you, you just saved my life.
That's okay.
But until when he goes to heaven, the fact he's still dead.
Eugene, please don't go now. Eugene, please.
So yeah, it's an emotional episode, and I enjoyed a break when the story focuses on another character, even though we've never seen them before, like Elton, for example, in Love and Monsters. What do you guys think of Random Shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Torchwood, Out of Time, the 10th episode of Series 1, is written by Catherine Tregenna and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bernd Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth Davids-Lloyd. So yeah, this episode is different because there's no alien threat or horror.
There's no puzzle to solve, no enemy to fight. Just 3 lost people.
This episode is about 3 people in a plane got passed through a rift from 1953 to modern day, when they were planning on going to Dublin.
Can you travel 50 years in half an hour?
Your aircraft slipped through a transcendental porthole.
A what?
A door in time and space.
And because they're stuck, they try to fit in, which I think it's a nice change. So we have Diane Holmes, a pilot who flies a plane called Sky Gypsy and got in relationship with Owen, and she's played by Louise Delamere. John Ellis, who's a fireman during World War II, but also worked in retail, and when he's accidentally in 2007, he's been looking for his family, and he's played by Mark Lewis Jones. Emma Louise Cowell, not relating to Simon Cowell, but anyway, who loves movies, especially musicals, when she mentions how much she liked Calamity Jane, and she's played by Olivia Hallinan. I think casts have done really well. It's shit that Jack mentions that according to history, the plane never returns. Also when he gave those 3 a passport with fake names.
No.
We can fake references.
You can't take away our names. For God's sake, man, it's all we've got left. It's my son's name.
And yeah, I can see why John was pissed off about it, as it's his family name. I enjoyed the scene where Ianto took Diane, John and Emma to Asda and learning what the shops are like in 21st century, including the automatic doors and DVDs, as they didn't exist in 1950s. Well, doors are, obviously, but not the automatic ones.
Sorry, we are a consumer society.
It's bloody fantastic.
So there's John shocked when he sees a barely dressed celebrity on a Peach magazine, Emma finding one of the eyelash makeup saying she's got to have that, and Diane when she picks up a cigarette packet and she had no idea why it says smoking kills. As I think 1950s, no one knew that smoking is bad, and a cigarette packet used to look like that, until 1966. That's when people find out that smoking is bad for your health. When I find out about that information, I'm surprised the cigarettes aren't discontinued.
You know smoking is bad for your health, and it isn't grown up at all. So please, don't smoke.
So those guests for a short time were staying at a hostel. Emma was really devastated because her parents have died, and so was her friend and her dog. So the 2 orphan girls cheered her up and gave her a drink and started to get drunk together. And yeah, John came in and went off it with her. I'm like, just trying to get cheered up, there's no need for that. And yeah, Emma was pretty upset, so she decided to move in with Gwen. I find the scene funny where Emma was sleeping on the couch and there's Reese walking in and out of the kitchen naked, and Emma all of a sudden screamed as soon as she woke up, while Reese was going like this. And then cut to the scene where Gwen was making excuses on the reason why Emma was here. And Reese thought it's best not to mention to her parents about his morning glory, having a laugh about it. So they allow her to stay up for Christmas. In the nightclub scene where they were playing Shaking That Ass song, and there was a bloke who's pulling Emma, for a second I thought Reese was right when he's like, don't you think you're overreacting, Gwen, after when she cop blocks that guy? Until we find out that Emma doesn't know about the way the pulling is in nowadays. So yeah, that makes sense. Emma gets a job, and after when her and Gwen came back from shopping, Reese seemed to be unhappy on the couch. Why? Well, because he finds out that Emma is not related to Gwen and called her a Pollyanna.
Do you even know her?
She was lost.
When she tries to tell Reese about her, he's been a dick about it. The fact she's only 18 and she's homeless. She ended up in the 21st century with nowhere to go, but he just had absolutely none of it at all. So yeah, in the end, Emma takes a train to elsewhere, and at least she's still got the job. John visits to his elderly son called Alan. He's got Alzheimer, and he's having trouble remembering a lot of things. He can't recognise his dad. We also found out his wife died, which is really sad obviously. Plus he can remember which team won on FA Cup final when he was a child, as it was Liverpool.
Alan. Who are you?
This is so heartbreaking, and poor John, his wife died and his son doesn't know his dad, and yeah, as a result, John decided to kill himself by a carbon monoxide poisoning, as he doesn't see why he should live anymore. And yes, that's Sam Beasley, who was in Johnny English as a hospital patient.
My God, what have they done to you?
They've taken some of my blood.
Bastards.
Meanwhile, Owen has bought a red dress for Diane and is doing a romantic dance at a car park, then went home and decided to make love with each other. Oh yeah, Diane keeps trying to find a way to fly a plane again and hoping she'd get back in her own time, and got me wondering why she didn't take Owen with her. At least they'll be together.
What memories I'm taking with me.
So yeah, the way I see this episode, it's a Christmas Torchwood episode, even though it's not released on Christmas Day like Doctor Who normally does. I really enjoyed this episode. What do you guys think of Out of Time? Let me know in the comments below. Torchwood Combat, the 11th episode of Series 1, is written by Noel Clarke and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth David Lloyd. Just like Noel Clarke, Mark Gatiss starred in Doctor Who and has written episodes. Colin Baker and Ian Marta, the actors who plays the Sixth Doctor, and Harry Sullivan, has written a Doctor Who magazine comic strip called The Age of Chaos, based upon the series after his tenure on the show. So yeah, this episode begins with a weevil on the run, so when Captain Jack tries to get after it, he gets scratched in the chest, which must be painful. And yes, the weevils are brutal monsters. While Gwen and Reese were sitting in a restaurant for a date, Gwen didn't seem to be herself, as she's probably thinking about the time where she slept with Owen, and Reese had no idea what's up with Gwen. And yeah, when Jack needed Gwen's help, Reese didn't know Captain Jack and thought it was a random guy trying to take Gwen. When she tries to introduce him, Reese went totally off it when he shouted, "Sit the fuck down!" I was like, dude, you can't speak to your girlfriend like that.
One night off, you promised. Don't you dare. If you go now, Gwen!
I'm surprised those two are still together the way things have been going on between the two. And yes, I understand about Reese's frustration, but Jesus. So while Gwen and Jack were getting after a weevil in the car park, White Van arrives and masked men decides to take a weevil with them. This is really intense. Owen was really depressed because he lost Diane. While refusing to answer work calls, he was talking to a barmaid and her boyfriend got into a fight with him as he thought he was chatting her up. When Jack went to a corpse that was attacked by a weevil, I found it funny when the phone was ringing and used the Crazy Frog as a ringtone, and Tosh thought it was Captain Jack's phone. It would be funny if Jack actually used the Crazy Frog song as a ringtone. So when Owen picked up his phone and pretended to be his voicemail, Jack didn't fall for it. So he went to the hub to examine the body, and we find out that he has been assaulted by humans and then got mauled by a weevil. So while the team were in the hospital investigating about the weevil attacks, Gwen decides to tell Reese the truth to let out her frustration, and yes, Reese was drunk and He was pissed off after what Gwen told him, but luckily for Gwen, she drugs Reese with an amnesia pill, so he won't remember. Owen goes undercover, and this is interesting in the scene where a Weevil is in the cage, and this is like wrestling arena. And Mark Lynch allows Owen to go in the cage with a Weevil. I had no idea what he's thinking. Thankfully, Torchwood arrived just in time while Owen was getting mauled by a Weevil, and then he woke up in a hospital and said he hated grapes when Jack gave a packet of grapes to him. Owen wasn't grateful because he didn't want to be saved. So in the end, Owen went down to the vault, and it seems like him and the Weevil are communicating or something. Alex Hastel as Mark Lynch is a fantastic villain. I enjoyed the Weevil cage scene, that was pretty good. I'd love to know what you guys think of this episode. Let me know in the comments below. Torchwood, Captain Jack Harkness, the 12th episode of Series 1, is written by Catherine Tregenna and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bernd Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth Davids-Lloyd. So we have 3 Whoniverse episodes released on 1st of January 2007. Captain Jack Harkness, End of Days, and Sarah Jane Adventures' first episode, Invasion of the Bane. A New Year's Day of fun time. So what happens in this episode? Captain Jack and Tosh investigates an abandoned dance hall. They've got a nice Easter egg where it says vote Saxon, which means vote the Master as the Prime Minister. When Jack and Tosh heard a music and sees the hall packed, they found themselves slipped through a time in 20th January 1941, set in 3.5 months before the events of gas mask zombies.
Where's the SUV? Has it been stolen?
No? We have.
The way Ianto and Owen noticed it, it's kind of like Primeval, a series where anomaly appears and dinosaurs appear from their time to present day, which is interesting stuff.
Some force ripped the boundaries of space and time to shreds.
Obviously, Tosh can't get through to a hub. Gwen Cooper is rarely in this episode because Eve Miles was busy filming Random Shoes. So a random soldier decided to pull Tosh and about to fight Jack. But then a captain stick up for them. This is where Captain Jack meets the real Captain Jack. I'm going to call him Captain, even though he's the real Captain Jack. It's just to save the confusion. I think Mark Rippey has done a fantastic job.
Jack Harkness, 133rd Squad.
We learned Captain Jack took the captain's name as he was running away from something and needed a false identity to keep himself hidden, so he took his name. I love the scene where they both said, "I'm Captain," and then paused. It was lucky that the captain said who he is before Jack does, so he decided to take the name James Harper. I wonder what happened if, well, Jack actually says he was called Captain Jack. He'd be like, hang on a minute, that's my name. Meanwhile, Owen finds Tosh's reports of the day where Diane flew through a rift, and Owen had to let her go. So he wanted to open the rift to get Diane back. They really can't seem to get along. Owen points out that the team doesn't know who Jack is.
I'm tired of living with Jack's secrets. We don't even know who he is.
He's our leader.
Not anymore.
But Ianto was like, he's our boss, we do what he says. So while Owen tries to open the rift, Ianto shoots him in the shoulder. I think if Gwen was there, she can handle it better. So a villain, Billis Manger, played by Murray Melvin, which I think he's brilliant. Billis was a servant of Abaddon. He can time travel like walking into a room. He allows Owen to find a missing piece from a grandfather clock to open the rift, to bring not only Captain Jack and Tosh, but other hysterical people, which we'll get into at the next episode, End of Days. So while there's an air raid on, everyone got undercover, and can't believe Tosh cut her hand with a tin just to use her blood to write a message what Gwen discovers in the 21st century. Oof, painful. I enjoyed in the end where Jack is dancing with the captain and then smooch at each other, then him and Tosh went back to 21st century. Jack and Tosh shared a toast to the late Captain Jack Harkness. This episode has got great ideas, interesting ideas. What do you guys think of Captain Jack Harkness? I mean the episode, not the character, but you can let me know what you think of the character as well. Well, which one? Both of him? Torchwood, End of Days, the 13th episode of Series 1, is written by Chris Chibnall and starring John Barrowman, Eve Miles, Bern Gorman, Naoko Mori, and Gareth Davies-Lloyd. First they named the episode End of Days, then renamed Apocalypse, and then back to End of Days. And I think they should save the name Apocalypse for any good episodes about apocalypse like zombies. Would it be cool to have them in Torchwood? So this episode begins with Gwen having a morning off lying in bed with naked Reese. I'm not sure how Kai Owen felt about it, but he said he's got good and happy memories filming the series, so there's that. Plus, would it kill Reese to wear pyjamas instead of smacking his ass in front of Eve Miles and the cameraman? Anyway, Jack phones Gwen to look at the news. There's UFO over Taj Mahal and fight between armed police and English Civil War soldiers, which is something I'd love to see in Torchwood, with different time zones colliding.
Judgment Day is finally here. This is the end of days.
It was Owen who splintered the rift when he rescued Jack and Tosh from the 1940s. So when Jack and Gwen went to the police station, PC Andy shows them a Roman soldier in police custody. I like the moments where Jack and Gwen were talking about rift and shit, and there's Andy going, "Hi, anyone feel like talking sense?" So Gwen sees a glimpse of Billis, while Yanto sees Lisa, and Owen sees Diane, and Tosh sees her mum, and get them to open the rift. Because Owen was talking back to Jack, saying that he opened the rift to save Jack and Tosh's life, but also told him that he has no idea who he is, Jack fired him while the team members protested.
Get out. What? Get out!
I'm relieving you of your duty.
No, you can't do that.
So when Jack and Gwen goes into a clock shop and find Billis, he shows a vision where Reese dies.
I'm sorry.
What did you just show me?
The future.
So Gwen went home to drug Reese to sleep and put him in the cell to keep him safe. Obviously he wasn't happy about it, as he wasn't aware what was really going on. Poor Reese had been going through a lot of shit ever since Gwen started working in Torchwood. So the security had been breached by Billis, causing the power to play up. When Reese is set free, Billis impaled Reese, and Gwen was pretty devastated, screaming in horror, and Jack seems to be stressed out. I can tell Eve Miles spent time practicing. That acting she did so well.
There's nothing we can do!
Originally they were going to kill Reese off at the end of Series 1, but Russell T Davies said if it happened, the real world would be lost, which is why instead they brought him back to life. So the team agreed with Owen to open the rift, except Jack of course, who decided to point his gun at them.
You're a united front now.
When he insulted the entire staff, Gwen punches him and Owen has killed Jack. So when they opened it and Jack is back to life again, everyone realised that Billis tricked them to release Abaddon, who is a demon, and this is mind-blowing. Apparently he's the son of the beast from the Satan pit. He actually is, it's crazy.
Oh, hail Abaddon, the great devourer.
And because Abaddon's shadow kills anyone who touches it, Jack, as he can't die, decides to feed off his life, with a blue flying effects from his chest to destroy Abaddon. As a result, Jack dies again and the rift is closed. That history has been erased and reset that time. And yeah, like I said, Reese is alive again, thankfully. It took several days for Jack to come to life, and that's where we see Jack and Yanto are in love, and he mentions the rift is more volatile than ever. So when everyone but Jack gets a coffee, we see the Doctor's hand glowing and the sound of the TARDIS materialising from the top of the hub. Which leads up to Doctor Who Series 3, Final Part 1, Utopia.
Cardiff! Cardiff? Ah, that. The thing about Cardiff
It's built on a rift in time and space. Just like California and the San Andreas Fault.
I love it when they add Doctor Who Easter eggs, and yeah, when the team came back, they noticed that Jack is missing. So yeah, this is a fantastic episode, I enjoyed it. What's your thoughts of End of Days? Drop it down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.